Okay, I'm back, everybody. Okay, let's see. You should be able to see my Skyslope screen. Can y'all see it? Okay, good. Okay, we have a couple people in the office here and they are watching on the screen too. But welcome to Skyslope training, our necessary evil, right? I'm here to tell you it's not that evil, and we can actually use it to help your process to reduce your time that you spend on paperwork. So there are 3 things that I'm going to go over, but if you have other questions or topics that you want us to address, put them in the chat and Andrea will bring them up to us here. So the things I'm going to go over first, using transactions to manage your buyer lists. So let's say you have South Carolina buyer, North Carolina buyer, and a North Carolina land buyer. Well, we can use Skyslope to manage all of those people at the same time so that you know what checklist items you need for each one just at a single click. And then using DigiSign templates, definitely a big thing we're going to cover. And also just looking at documents and under the documents tab, how you can split up documents and manipulate them. Those are my main topics. So let's get started. Any comments before we get started, actually? Okay, great. So you are in my Skyslope. You get a little sneak peek at my admin side of the business where you can see everybody's deals. But my Skyslope functions just like yours as far as managing transactions. So firstly, how many, let's see, in the room, you guys can answer me. How many buyers do you currently have working with?
6.
6?
4.
1, 4. 6, 1, and 4. Okay, how are you keeping track of your 6 buyers right now? Spreadsheet or just lists?
I have a list.
List.
I have a board at home.
A board, okay. Andrea does not have an answer. So I have a solution. My solution is to use the transaction section of Skyslope. And here's how. I have a couple samples in here. So under my managed transactions, I have created 2 dummy files. And this is what I would ask you to do. This is just one method that I'm going to teach you from step 1 until the contract phase. So look at the top of my screen, the first 2 that I have in the list. I put TBD under the property address, and I put my buyer's name, Billy Bob or Susie Q, under the address of the property. So these 2 are buyers, right? They're not under contract yet. We don't have a property yet, but I went ahead and put 1 in North Carolina, 1 in South Carolina. Now, since I have set up Billy Bob, who is going to buy some land in North Carolina, and I know you can't find land in Charlotte right now, but we're pretending that he's going to look for some land in Charlotte. Now I already have a checklist to work off of. So here I just put in a lot of pretend information that can all be changed later. You know that all of this transaction information can be edited. And then we will move over to the checklist. Now you have a checklist to work off of as you are showing this client around, as you are preparing all of the different documents during the different stages. Once Billy Bob is under contract, you can just edit this same file in order to get it ready for closing. Now I have my checklist to work off of. Now I can get started and I know which documents to prepare in Skyslope. Also, we can go back to look at Susie Q. And if I had all 6 of my buyers in here, they would just be in a list. And I could put whatever closing date I wanted in order to organize this list so that they are either at top or bottom. Susie Q is looking in Fort Mill. So we need to know what South Carolina forms and not confuse that list of forms we need for Susie Q with the list of forms we need for Billy Bob. So now we have our South Carolina checklist all queued up in here, and we know what to work off of. If I already had my working with agents and buyers agency, I could attach them in here, but it's not necessary to do it right now as long as you have your documents saved in the Documents tab. And we'll go through DigiSign and why it's great to have a property set up already here under transactions a document in DigiSign, you can always attach it back to this transaction when you're sending from day one, when you're working with that buyer, so that it's always here. You don't have to go back into DigiSign, download it again, and add it to each transaction for each offer or each contract. Does that make sense to everybody? So again, even though we have dummy information in here, sale price, names, we can always change it again in the transaction and contacts when we're under contract. Let's say, how many offers have you put in for your 6 buyers for Lisa? Just give me a ballpark for like one of them.
One of them, 5.
5 offers? Okay. Where should those offers be?
Right now, I just have them over DigiSign.
You have them in DigiSign. Okay. It doesn't help you to have them in DigiSign. Why?
Because I have to transfer them back over to the checklist.
Because you have to transfer them back over to the checklist, and they aren't living in that client's transaction folder. This is that client's transaction that we're looking at right here. We'll call it a folder, even though it's just a bunch of tabs, but it's not easily found a year from now, right? Let's say a year from now, this file is archived, you're done with that client, but you need to know what property they were looking at or what property you put an offer in it. You can't find it later if it's just stuck in your DigiSign, right?
I have a hard time finding it.
Yes, see? Hard time finding it now, she says. So what happens when we start with this buyer file from day one, working with that buyer, is that each time you send a document in DigiSign, you can put it back into that file. So right here, I can look up Susie Q. Here's her file. Instead of clicking no property like you probably usually do on a buyer because you don't have a transaction set up yet, you would select Susie Q's file. Then all of those offers, any document that is signed or sent to Susie Q will go back into her file again. Do you see the benefit of that for auditing purposes, for finding it later in archives? Really great to do this step. Now, how does this work since you're using forms from Zipforms? Everyone's probably thinking that at some point during this conversation, and we will get into that as far as templates. But let's just take one more look here. You can do the same thing with listings. I don't have any queued up right now, but listings, same thing. Now listings, you're probably going to be doing more activity with them because buyers take longer to find a property, right? So listings, you're probably working in this file from day one. However, if you have a seller who's not going to start selling until next year, again, you can still create a file in here and put in some dummy information or some NAs for the information you don't know now and get it started so that you have a checklist to work off of. Sound good? Are there any questions? Right. Everything in listings, both on mine and on an agent's view, is all active. It's supposed to be active. So let's go into Andrea's. We know that this one's active right now, and it's not going to be under contract until we accept this contract right here. And just as a reminder, you have to attach everything. It does not have to be reviewed, but see, she doesn't have a CMA. Andrea, you have to get your CMA in here. Well, but you aren't going to be able to accept a contract and move this file over into transactions until everything, every required checklist item has an attachment. Again, it does not have to be reviewed by me. It just has to have an attachment with it. And then this accept contract button will appear. And this listing converts completely over into a transaction file. It does not live in listings anymore. It completely transfers over. Okay. Next thing on my training list, I'm going to go over DigiSign templates, and specifically for buyers. So what we are going to do is start in Zipforms on some forms we're going to fill them out just to a template stage and then bring them over into DigiSign so that they are ready to send to a client. And my suggestion is to do this with buyers. You can do this with listings too, but the listing agreement has a lot more fields in it that are transaction specific, like a lot of terms that could change. The buyer's agency, pretty simple, right? You can send that out without having to change a whole lot. So we'll start in the buyer side. The other consideration is state forms and when they are revised during the year. So here we are, we're in Andrea's Zipforms. Hopefully you all know what Zipforms looks like. And I've started a sample transaction over here so I can prepare this template. You can do templates in Zipforms as well. And some of you who are also with South Carolina, you might be using DigiSign, I'm sorry, Digital Ink. And that's a different set of steps, but the same type of reasoning behind setting up a template. So in here, this is just a sample template. I am not putting in any client information in here. I'm just going to add some forms. So go to documents, all forms. Now I'm going to set up a North Carolina buyer, and I'm only going to do a buyer's agency and a working with agents, because this will be the quickest type of template that you will use. Okay. Now, in here, some of the information should populate. So we have our firm name already populated. We can go ahead and click residential. We can go ahead and type in right here. What do you guys typically say? Just typically say as indicated in MLS, as offered in MLS.
Yeah, and it's different sometimes. Yeah, so I just put as agreed upon between seller and listing agent.
Okay, and I'll check mark this, but we will put in fields for the exact dates in your template. All right, page 2, what do you put in for the number of days here? 180. We're going to check mark all of these because a good realtor is going to share all of these disclosures with their client. And everything else can be filled in. Okay. Dual agency, what do you guys put now? Okay, now here, of course, no client information. We don't need to fill any of that in. If your Skyslope template or your Skyslope account has all of your info, it should pre-populate lots of this. But we do want to make sure your license number's in here. We want to make sure your office address is correct, which hers is wrong. That's okay. Oh, that's firm license. Sorry. I wasn't reading, talking. So double check this information. When it's completed, we're going to hit save at the top, just regular save, not save to PDF yet, just regular save. Okay, now we're going to hit back to go back to this sample file. Now we're going to just set up our working with agents. This should be quicker. I'm not going to check any boxes. Well, I can check my these. You can always use a different template for if you have a scenario that's unique. Okay, make sure all your information is correct, hit save again. Now I was talking, but if you were not talking while you were doing this, it would have taken you half the amount of time, right? That was very quick. Now check mark both. Now we're going to hit save to PDF because I'm going to save this to my device into one single PDF in order to put into DigiSign. Okay, now let's flip back over. Let's think. It does. Okay, there we go. I'm going to have to move this. I can't see my tabs. No, but I can move Chrome. Okay, so now we're back in Skyslope in DigiSign. Has anyone created templates in DigiSign ever? Yes, of course. Okay, DigiSign always defaults to the completed tab, right? So you can see if your people have signed what you sent to them. But we are going to hop over here to templates. In mine, you will see lots of office templates, right? Onboarding some new agents, policies, procedures, things like that. In yours, we are going to create North Carolina buyer. And I'm just going to be very specific about what's in it. And we're going to add the documents. Now, once you add documents, you cannot change what is in this template. This template is made. Once the template's made, if you have to change something, you need to create a new one. That is just the type of documents that are in it and what you upload. So let's go to my documents. Now this template, we are going to add roles. Those roles are very generic. It'll be agent and buyer. If you want to add both buyers, it's probably a good idea. You can always delete them later. It's better to add them now. And those documents are uploading. Okay, so we will add some roles. First, we will probably add agent, which, oh no, we'll add me, excuse me. Me needs to sign, so that will be you. One option is you could sign these ahead of time and put them in, because in DigiSign, you can sign without having to put a date next to it. So you could go add that extra step in the middle, but you don't have to. Now we'll add the purchaser. And we'll add another purchaser. Okay. Then you can delete the second one later. And when you delete the second one later, while you're creating that envelope, it removes all of the fields that were added for that person. So it's not confusing.
I got a question too.
Yeah.
So because templates are not able to change their formula, would this be something for like a buyer to do? But that after all, it's just blank, kind of just put the X's that you put in names. When would this be used?
That question will be answered as I go through.
Okay.
You will use this to actually send these agency agreements to your client to sign.
Okay.
This will be, we are teeing up those documents to send. We're eliminating the creation step and getting you to a point where all you have to do is execute the documents to the client instead of typing in forms every time you send it.
Yeah, she's eliminated using Zipform for every single
I'm
site.
just like back and forth over
Yep.
there, and I'm just finding myself.
No, we are actually going to put the fields for the initials and the signatures in the document, so it's already ready.
Okay.
And all you have to do is add in that specific client's name and email, and then it will start that process. Yep, yep. Okay, so we are ready to finish this template. Okay, just like in a normal setting where you're sending an envelope, it will come over to the forms, to the fields. So we're going to set it up. We only have to set this up once. The fields will already be in here when you come back to it later to send to a client. So we will put the date signed, or of course you can come back here and change it to a writable field if you have to backdate it. I didn't say that.
This isn't being recorded.
All right, so I just added my two names. So I went to full name, I added purchaser one's name, and I added purchaser two's name. I'm gonna put them on this line right here, so they'll show up. Again, if you come in and delete purchaser two, when you're sending this, it just remove this. It won't. Just make sure you delete purchaser two. I'll go ahead and add a writable field here for myself as the agent for later, so I can fill that in. Same thing here. We'll put that on the expiration. I can go ahead and put date signed in here for the starting date. Again, you can always remove this and add a writable field if you need to manually change that later. This is fine the way it is. Now, when it comes to initials, I'm gonna go ahead and put in my initial if I have it pre-signed. And I'm gonna go ahead, oops, mine goes here. And I'm gonna go ahead and put in a purchaser one and a purchaser two. Okay, I'm gonna do that on every single page. Okay, same thing here, everywhere that you would normally do it if you're sending to an actual client. Okay, same thing with the buyer's agency. Go ahead and set it up. Okay, signature, I'm going to put in buyer twos. I'm going to put in buyer ones. Okay, and I'll put in a date sign probably for buyer one. Okay. Now, when this is all designed the way you want it, and this part can be changed later. It's just the number of documents and type of documents that you add on that first screen that cannot be changed. But these fields can be changed. If you mess it up and you go to send it to a client and you're like, oh, I missed that, or I should have done it this way, you can go in and edit this part of the template later. Okay, hit save. Now it says your template's been created. So I'm going to close that. Now this new template is here, and I was very specific about which documents were in it just for myself. Tells you which roles are in here. Now, if I want to use this template to send to Susie Q, I click on create envelope. And if you click on the template, you're just going to edit the template. You're not going to create a replicated one to send to Susie Q. You're just going to revise your template. So we have to make sure we click create envelope. And Susie Q's, let's see, where is Susie Q? There she is. Susie Q's folder is already here. If I needed to send something else to Susie Q, if I had comps to send her or something, I can add it to this envelope. Now, here, because Susie Q's name is already going to be in that transaction in Skyslope, her name would pop up right here as a purchaser. So it would already come up here and ready for me to send. My name already comes up here too.
Uncheck that second purchaser.
Right. Yep. You would just uncheck this and it gives you a prompt. Please confirm if you're removing this recipient. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. So Susie Q, let's say she's single, she's just buying a house by herself. Remove recipient, and it removed them from the list. Let's say that Chanda, who's not in here? Let's see, is Clarissa in here? No. Let's just send it. Okay. Now, this will look just like when you're sending to another client on a normal day. However, it already removed purchaser two because I didn't need them. And it's already set up here with all the fields. Now, if you're setting up the fields for yourself as the agent like this. So if I set up the general location and I'm going to type in Mecklenburg and wherever else, then you have to make sure you do that when you're in here before it goes to the client, or else it'll show up blank. So you need to fill these in and submit them and accept them as yourself while you're in here. So what it'll do, because it applied those to me. So I've got my dates right, the date right that I sign right here will be the effective date because that's how I set it up. And then my initials will be at the bottom. So if you set up that way, you have to make sure you complete it. If you pre-sign it, you don't have to do that. However, you might want to make sure to fill in things like general location, because that is something that needs to be on the buyer's agency, and make sure that your dates are correct on your term. Okay, so let's say it's ready to go. I send to my client. It'll go ahead and tee up the name of the transaction, so you can edit this however you'd like. In the template, it did give me an option to put in a message. So you could set that up before in the template as well, but you can also edit it right here. So I'm going to send this for signatures. Now, since I am a party to this signature envelope, it has asked me if I want to sign now or later. You always want to sign now if you have fields in there that need to show before your client signs. Did that make sense the way I explained that? Okay. So now as the agent, I'm going to go ahead and sign this. So I'm going to check what, oh, well, I spelled it wrong. Maybe I should go fix it before it goes to my client, right? And then, oh, I forgot to fill in a date right here. I should probably put in a date, but it already put in the date up here for when I signed it. So I'm signing today and it's adding the date that I put in. Okay, I should probably initial to make sure that I'm executing the document as well. Now, when I hit submit, those changes, because I submitted it, those changes will show up for your client when they go into look. Okay.
Can you show how we send these?
Yes.
That the email them?
Absolutely.
This is a question.
Absolutely.
Or how they can see the history.
The question was, how do you go back to look at it in case you got the email wrong or the client just didn't see it, it went to their spam, something like that. So let's go to, we're still in DigiSign. We'll go to the sent section. Here it shows, I sent it to Andrea. Andrea hasn't looked at it because she's too busy. So we're going to go in and look at the history. Here's what I did. Over here on the right, there's a little circle with a clock that says history. There's also a little gear that says edit and resend. There's also a create template. So you can, that's another tool. So let's go to the history. Andrea hasn't opened it yet because again, she's too busy. So if she had, we would see a task right here that said when, and note these are in Pacific time. It would show when she opened it, when she agreed to the customer disclosure. So she actually started it. And it shows when I originally sent it. So you can confirm to your client that it was sent. Oh, okay. Andrea says that she did take time out of her busy schedule to look at it. Okay, Andrea agreed to the customer disclosure and she accepted her name and initials right here. Okay. Now, if we mess something up, if we put in the wrong dates, we click on the edit. If we just messed up the email address, here it is. You can change it right here and resend. If we need to completely correct it, we click on correct envelope. When you do this, it reopens the envelope and they cannot open the original email that was sent. Okay. It does. It deletes what everyone has already completed. So if you do have two buyers on it and the second buyer's email is wrong, but the first buyer already signed, if we go to correct it, it will delete that and they have to re-sign. And that does say right here, which will require all completed signers to re-sign the document. So it gives you a warning right here. Okay. I click yes. I come back in here. I realized, oh, we aren't going for, let's see, where's the date? We aren't going for a year. We're just going to go until the end of the year instead. Go and resend it. This is all going to just show up the same. You have to go through the same steps in order to send. Okay. You have to sign again because you were a party to the transaction, to the envelope as well. And we need to sign for you. I'm just going to hit sign later. Okay, all templates will work the same. This is the easiest. Obviously, we're talking through it, so it's taking a little longer, but if you were not talking through it, this could only take a couple minutes to set up. And it's ready to go. And reusable. Your information's already in there. Your license number has already been confirmed. It's already on those pages, ready to go. So when a buyer comes to you and you're in a rush to go see this property so that it doesn't go under contract, you can get this executed much faster before you go out. Okay. Are there any questions? That was a whole big, long process. We're all good? Covered it? Okay. Okay. I want to look at a transaction and show you a couple little parts that you probably have not used. So let's go back into Suzy Q. We're just going to add a document to Suzy Q. Let's say her buyer's agency was signed, but that working with agents and buyer's agency will show up in one file together. So we need to learn how to split that up in order to apply it to the checklist items. It's very simple, just a couple steps. We'll walk through it. Okay. These documents will say DigiSign at the end of them when they're completed, and they will automatically pop into this Documents tab when they're signed. So the little eyeball does give you a preview, pulls it up, shows you what it looks like. You can scan through very fast. Okay. So I know this has 7 pages, and I know working with agents is only 1 page. Now, there is a button on the right, split. See the button? Split. You can also rename, obviously. Split helps us to break up a document. You can break it up into any denomination here. You can add tons of them. If it's a huge file with contract and all these addendums, then you can break it out. Okay, we can look here. We can zoom in, but that's why I looked at it on the larger view ahead of time, so I knew exactly how many to put. So I only have 2, don't need the rest. Now, if I type in working with agents, oh, it's not doing. It's not assigned. There we go. All right. If I start typing in a checklist item that I know is in my checklist, like buyer agency agreement, it will show up here as a drop down so I can choose it. Okay. And it will label it the exact correct name. I don't know why working with agents is not. Maybe it's just slow. I can assign it later. So I've already split. I'm going to do split and assign. That will assign this document automatically to my checklist. I don't have to do that extra step. You just need, we just have to go through these steps, right? And practice. It is a smart tool. It is a smart site. Now it says you split 2 documents and one was attached to your checklist. It tells you what happened. Now I'm going to go to my checklist because I know that by working with agents, that's why, because it's a South Carolina form and it's not called working with agents. So let me attach it from my list. Look, here it is. When you split up documents, it keeps the original and it splits the document into 2 new ones and it leaves them in your documents tab. So I can come here and choose it. And now it's ready to go. Also in documents, there is an email for every Skyslope transaction. If you want to use this email to take all of your communication emails with the other client during the contract period, or emails with your client, you can forward them all over to this email in order to save them in here for auditing purposes. Especially with tough transactions, this is a really great tool to use because you will always have that communication saved in here. And you don't have to go back and find it in your Gmail. Also in here, you can save all of your offers that are not accepted. And let's say you send offers to sign, you already have this buyer transaction set up, and they will come back into here when your client signs. Obviously, that is the furthest most that document will go if it's not accepted. So you already have that document in here even before the offer is not accepted. Like you already have it when you're putting in the offer. So it can just stay here. There's no extra step. It's already here. And if you're doing 5 or 6 of them, again, no extra steps. Any questions about how the benefits of using a buyer file way from the start of working with them? Don't wait. Don't wait. Couple other little tools in here. You can select these documents. Let's say I'm done working with that client at the end of the transaction, and I want to just give them their documents to have for their own file. I can go ahead and just email them directly to them from here. If I do that, it just creates an email. It does attach whatever documents I want in the file and attaches them to an email. You can do multiple. You can do this throughout the transaction. Just another nice tool. Now, what if I forget when I did something or where something is? There is a log. Let's see what's in the log. Okay. Looks like I assigned some transactions to my checklist. Looks like this is when I added this document. Looks like this is when I created it. Every single thing I did in this file is in here. If Amanda goes to review your file, adds a note, adds a comment, or rejects a document, you can see it in here too. I don't currently use this, but if someone finds it valuable, there is a task tool. You can set tasks for yourself. You can set task rules for yourself. That would be up in your admin section. That would apply to all transactions. Just some other great things in here. And again, back to the checklist. I have this checklist to work off of as I'm working with this client. Okay. Those are the main points that I wanted to hit today. I hope that was valuable and helpful. Are there any more questions? We can completely open it up. I can address anything. Any problems you've run into in Skyslope as you're working?
No, this is awesome. I was trying to do this on Monday, and when will this be uploaded? Because I want to work on this in the next 2 days. So will this video be available as soon as possible?
Oh, sure.
However, the closing form, the closing transaction forms, I've never completed before.
Oh, that's fine. We'll go through the closing transaction form together. I can just take a look at working docs here to remind everyone that some office documents are in working docs, and working docs can be a holding place for you for things like sample documents. You can create templates in here, of course, for sample documents to send to clients, for lead-based paint disclosure, for home inspection disclosure, whatever that Q&A, the Q&A home inspection form. All of that can be saved in here and queued up to be sent to a client faster than having to go look in your files again. And if you were to do that, you would go into your personal docs or office docs. You would just check mark it, and then there's a little DigiSign button here at the top. Click DigiSign, and again, it starts that process. You choose Susie Q's file, and if it's a sample document or just a disclosure, we can just send it to her without any signatures, just so she has it. And so I have record that I sent it to her inside my file. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining in today. We will do this again sometime. If you have questions, you know you can reach out to me, and you know where I am.
Hey, Amanda,
Okay.
how soon is this
Thanks
video
for joining.
going to
See you
become
soon.
available?